Hey guys, Chris here. Welcome back to the Watershed Overlook. Today I'm going to be working on something that really doesn't have anything to do with tractors at all, but it's a problem that's going to start down here on the pier, but I'm going to have to fix it up by the house. Before I do that, let's talk about the pier just a little bit. This pier was built in 2016. It replaced a pier that it was here for over 40 years. And then it finally just kind of gave up the ghost, and so we pulled up all the pilings and all this was completely rebuilt. On the previous pier, we did not have a boat lift. We did not have running water on the pier. We did have some power outlets down here, which is 110 volt power. So when the pier was built, we added a lift. The people that installed the lift just kind of came down and put the motors up. But left the rest for us. So after that was done, I did the wiring for the lift and also the outlets that are on the pier, the light that you see here, and ran the water line. I ran this when we built the pier back in 2016, but right now I don't have water down here. I realized yesterday when I turned the water on up at the house, and I came down here, I had almost no water pressure, and that's not usually an issue. Now, before I could turn this on yesterday, I had to repair another problem up at the pressure tank, which is by the house. So we're going to go up there and we're going to kind of backtrack, and then I'll tell you about what my actual problem is, I think, and how I'm going to go about fixing it. The water line comes down here, and you can't see it, it goes under the pier. But below the pier, it is PEX line, 1/2-inch PEX, that runs back up here. And then here you can see the conduit for the power here that goes up. And here you can see that the PEX line comes up and runs up the stairs. Here at the top, you can kind of see that that is going into the ground. Now, the water line and the power line run basically in a straight line from here between these two trees right here, and around the corner of the house, between the house and the woodshed, and around to the back. The water line and the power line come back here around the back corner of the house, and I think I've probably got some still images I can put in here from when I actually did that trench. It comes here and makes a right angle turn, and then somewhere right around here it angles over here to where the pressure tank is. And here down on the ground you can see where I've done a little bit of work. It's kind of a messy connection right there, but that's where the water line comes out and goes into the ground and gets buried and starts its run. This is the pressure tank from the well, which is out in the front yard. But if you look down in here in the dark, this is the line that we're talking about right here. This shut-off valve is what controls the water that runs down to the pier. Now you can see I've got a couple of joins there, and it comes through the wall, and I've got some interesting joins going on down there. Initially this came out, there was some PVC that came through here, but this weekend I had to change that. During the wintertime I forgot to drain the water line from here down to the pier. Normally I just open the valve down there, and there is a air fitting down there, and I can just blow the line right out, and I forgot to do it, and so the PVC popped when it got cold. So I wasn't able to turn the water onto the pier until yesterday, or rather this weekend. That's when I determined I didn't have water pressure down on the pier. I barely had a trickle coming out of the hose. So I thought what I had done was make a bad join down here where I had to fix that PVC that I replaced. But I worked on it some more last night, and I realized I could just hear water running and running and running and running, but there was nothing leaking down on the pier. There was nothing leaking here at those joins that I had dug back up. So I just let the water run, and I walked up and down the path where this water line runs, and that's when I determined that right about here on the ground, which is just right out here, I had water coming up out of the ground. So I know my water line is broken in this general area. And I thought and I thought and I thought about it, and I couldn't figure out why that was. And then it struck me that this past fall, if you see that orange piece of conduit right there, that is fiber internet. And they came in here while I was not here, and they used a machine to trench that, and it runs all the way out there, and you probably can't see it, but just past the flatbed trailer and the boat trailer is a power pole, and there is an orange piece of conduit that comes up there. So that water, that line from the conduit and the fiber optic cable is going to run right across here, which tells me that they cut the water line when they put in the cable. Now again, this was months ago. It's just a PEX line. I don't even know if you can find PEX when you're searching for buried cable or not. They did come out here and mark. The power cables were marked. But I was told that they were only going to dig about 6 inches down, and the water line should be much deeper than that. The trench was 18 inches, so even if it moved around a little bit, you know, it should be 12 inches deep, which is fine for, I mean, this isn't house water. This is just water line down on the pier. So anyway, I'm going to have to dig this up. I'd love to just come in here with a tractor and just scoop it up, but I'm very concerned about the fiber optic cable, and also we're very close to where the septic tank is. So I think, God forbid, I think we're talking hand tools.
5 minutes later.
Okay, I know I just told you that I'm not going to use my tractor, but I think I am going to use the tractor to just sort of scrape off the top layer of sod and grass. I'm going to come at it so I am parallel to where that fiber optic cable is running. So even if I do get down there near it, I'm much more likely to just kind of run along the conduit than I am to come at it from the side and hook it and do some damage. So cross your fingers. I may screw up big time. Screw up big time. That's about as deep as I'm brave enough to go. think right along in here somewhere is where that fiber optic cable is. Oh, there I see orange. All right, that's a relief. Now, where exactly this intersects with the water, it's almost 90 degrees today. I would pick the hottest day we've had so far to do this. Well, I think the best thing at this point I can do is turn this water on and see whether it's coming from this side or this side. Actually, what I may do is go in and look at some photographs I took when I dug this trench and see if I can get a better idea of exactly where this water line runs. I know generally, let me see if I can find some images before I work myself to death here, and then I'll circle back. All right, guys, I'm on my screen porch here, and I'm looking at some photos of when I did this work, and I don't know whether you will be able to actually see this or not. This is where that line runs, so I would show you this outside, but I don't think it's so bright, I don't think this would show up outside. But I'm going to literally take this laptop outside and try to stand where I took this photograph and get a better idea of where exactly this trench goes. Alright, so I came out here with my laptop and I literally stood here and tried to match up exactly where I was standing when I took that previous picture where you could see where the ditch was that I had filled in with this water line. And I've got these pieces of PVC and conduit laying out pretty much where I think it's supposed to be. As you can see, the water line is going to be significantly closer to the house than where I've dug this hole, but that kind of tracks, because if there's a busted line somewhere, you know, it's probably spraying underwater and just going to bubble up wherever it can. So at least now I know what direction to dig, and I have a general idea as to where that water line is going to be. I know where the conduit for the fiber optic is. So now I'm just going to work my way carefully forward and see what I get. In the meantime, I think I'm going to put up a cover because it's hot as blazing Hades out here. Right about here, I started having some audio issues, so I'm just going to have to do a voiceover here. I've replaced the PVC and conduit I had laying on the ground with paint so I can dig. The dotted line you see there tracks the internet, the fiber optic cable, and that orange conduit. And the solid lines are just where I think the water line is most likely to be. So here I begin to dig for the water line. Now you may notice that I am now digging perpendicular to the internet cable, whereas before I was parallel to it. And I'm doing that with the expectation that that internet cable is buried about a foot below the ground, which is where it was, 3 feet from where I'm digging right now. What I don't know is that as the internet approaches the house, it is buried much shallower to the ground, and I am about to find that out. I am intentionally taking away little tiny bites of the ground. I'm not trying to dig a big hole, and I'm trying to be very careful when I do this. But in this next bucket here, if you look at the left side of the bucket edge, you will see that I do, in fact, hook the internet cable right there. You can see it. So right now I'm in a big panic because I'm certain that I've just ripped the brand new fiber optic cable going into the house. So I'm inspecting that now. Fortunately, I discovered when I got in the house that I hadn't damaged the integrity of the fiber optic cable, just put a little kink in that conduit. So really, in hindsight, I was playing with fire here, and I'm very fortunate that I didn't get pretty seriously burned. I discovered I had some audio failure, so some of what I was saying I missed when I talked about this, but in a nutshell, I did exactly what I didn't want to do, which was to hook the fiber optic line. Fortunately, it's in this conduit, and the signal is still good. I put a little kink in it right here, but you know, it's a little aggravating. Where I found the conduit in my first hole that I dug, it was about a foot below the surface. And right here, it was about 2 inches below the surface, maybe 3. So that was a little aggravating. But, you know, my worst fears almost came true. There's the water line right there. Okay. As here you can get a better idea of what I got going on here. So I'm going to have to just splice in a new section here, and then I should be good. Whew. Guys, let me tell you why I find this really frustrating. Fixing this is not really a big deal. I was very fortunate that I was able to find the spot where the water was bubbling up out of the ground. So in the big picture, considering that I didn't end up ripping the fiber optic cable, and I was able to find this relatively easily, all things considered, you know, this should work out fine. But the thing that really annoys me about this is that when I ran this water line, I specifically ordered a huge roll of PEX. I think it was, may have been 300 feet, 250 feet, something like that. And the reason I did that was that from the spot over here at the pump house, or the pressure tank that I showed you before, that run all the way down to the end of the pier is a single piece of PEX pipe. Because, again, it's underground, and I didn't want to have to worry about any joins under the ground. So, you know what, I have yet to have a crimped PEX join fail. So, you know, I'm sure it will be fine, but it just kind of, it defeats the whole purpose of the way that I do this initially. And the other thing that annoys me a bit is that we're a small community, and getting internet down here was a big deal. It took a lot of work on a lot of people's behalves, residents down here, that basically they had to apply for a grant because this is an underserved area. It's rural, but if we'd have had to pay out of pocket to get the infrastructure brought the mile that it comes down the private road here, then these connections to the houses, it was many, many thousands of dollars. So all we have to pay for is the service. We didn't have to pay for any hookup, and so I'm really pleased about that. But in those sorts of circumstances, I think when you've got a new provider coming into a new area, everybody's trying to get on board at one time, there are some breakdowns, and you expect it, but when it happens, it's still aggravating. When I talked to the guy, the salesman, about getting all this in, I was promised that somebody would call me before they put this line in, because I wanted to be here for this very reason. And also, there is a power line that runs from the house out to the garage, which may have also been damaged. That'll be another story, but I only have partial power out there right now. But anyway, yeah, if they'd have been here, I could have shown them pretty much exactly where this was, and I could have avoided this happening. So, you know, first world problems. You know what? I have a broken water line at my river house. Cry me a river, right? So anyway, I'm going to clean this up a little bit more. I'm going to cut this section out. I'm going to crimp in a new section, and then hopefully I'm going to have good water pressure back on the pier again, and life will be golden. Stick around. Guys, you may have noticed that my PEX has a curve in it. Not to get too personal, but this is from the remnants of the big roll that I told you I bought when I did this job initially. This is one of the last pieces of it. So we're going to cut it, fit it to size, get this wrapped up. Alright guys, over here. Oh, left a piece of trash in the hole. So I've made the joins. I come back over here. Let's turn this valve and see what happens. Still no leaks over here. No drips here. Let's go down on the pier and check things out. All right, let's see here. It might take a minute for the water to come down the water line. Oh yeah, that's about 100 times better than what I had before. I can finally wash the bird poo off the boat and the pier. But we don't leave this charged up so we don't burst the hose. Okay guys, well, other than filling in the hole up there, putting away my stuff, I'm going to call this a success. You know, it's just part of the process of having a piece of property, whether it's the one you live in or the one you go to on vacation. So again, not tractor stuff this time, but I thought maybe you'd appreciate just seeing some of the other stuff that goes on down here. As always, I appreciate you being here, and I hope we see you next time.